Hey everyone, short lesson today. I just want to go over a few extra things. Lesson 8, credit worthiness. I literally have like 8 slides, so it's really going to be short. But I do want to go over a few things with you. Hold on, I got to get my timer started so I remember where I am. Okay. Thinking about doing a Zoom lesson because we haven't seen each other for so long. Probably schedule that for Friday. Optional. If you can make it, great. If you can't, no big deal. And if you want to invite the rest of the senior class to come, that would be great too. We can all do that together. It doesn't have to be limited to just economics. We might talk about our stock market game that's still going on for a few more weeks, or we might move on to other senior class stuff as well. So if you want to do that, let's plan for Friday. I'll get a time on the calendar at school and post it on our webpage this afternoon. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about credit worthiness. This is lesson 8, so we'll have a quiz over lessons 7 and 8. Let me write down the Zoom thing, make sure I do that. We'll have a quiz over this before spring break, and then that will be all we'll do. So I'll give you an assignment about credit worthiness this afternoon, and then we'll have a quiz over both sections, credit worthiness and sources of credit. And then we'll have our Zoom meeting on Friday. That's all we have left till spring break, okay? You can do it. Hang in there with me. We're almost to that point, okay? So let's talk about what credit worthiness is. Credit comes from the Latin word credere, which means to believe. Those of you who've taken Spanish, which is what I took, based on Latin, of course, the Latin word creer, C-R-E-E-R, the Spanish word, means to believe. So a similar word, but credit comes from that word. Do you believe that this person is trustworthy? Do you believe that they will do what they say they're going to do? That is credit worthiness. So we're going to stick with the 5 C's of credit worthiness. We're going to look at each one of these in turn. Character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. Makes it easy. Credit worthiness starts with a C, and all the 5 C's are C words as well. Okay, so the first one is character. Are you honest and reliable? And how would a lender know this? I mean, would you give $100 to somebody who walked up to you on the street and said, hey, can I borrow $100? Probably not too many of us would, because we don't know the person. We need to know that they would be reliable. And there's probably some people that you know that you wouldn't lend it to because you don't trust them to pay it back. So lenders, how are they going to know that if they've never met you before? So they are going to examine your history. They're going to require you to fill out an application and tell them all kinds of information about yourself that you never thought anybody would ever want to know. But they will ask you for it. So they want to know, how have you repaid previous loans? So they will actually also go to a credit bureau. There are 3 big ones. They are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Equifax, I believe, is the one that's headquartered here in Atlanta. They will go to those 3 credit bureaus. Sometimes they go to all 3. Sometimes they have one in particular they want to use. And they will ask them for their information about you as a borrower. Okay, so a credit bureau is a company that serves as a warehouse of information about borrowers. If you have a debt that you haven't paid, sometimes that company will call you and say, hey, if you don't make a payment on this, we're going to report you to the credit bureau. Well, that's what they mean. They're going to put a mark on your credit, kind of like a check mark when you were in elementary school that says you didn't pay this debt back in the proper way. So let's examine credit bureaus. What kind of information do they have about you? Well, they have information about previous loans you've made, the terms of those loans, any outstanding balance you might have due on those loans, and a record of how you repaid it. One of them in particular, and I'll explain why I know all of this in just a minute, but one of them in particular will tell the company that's asking for the information if you've paid on time and how many times you've paid 10 days late, or how many times you've been more than 30 days late, and stuff like that. Okay. Now, how do I know all of this? Well, as a borrower, because I don't own my home, I can look at my credit score and my credit bureau information sheet and make sure that that is accurate. Something I would highly recommend that you do once you enter that phase of your life. Check with the credit bureau and see what information they have about you. You are entitled to get, I think it's one free report every 6 months. So usually I'll rotate through the different credit bureaus and get those reports. I don't remember the frequency on it, but there is a law that was passed recently about how frequently you can have access to that information as a borrower. And it's good to keep up on that, especially if you're looking at doing something major within the next year, like buying a car or buying a home, because you may find that the credit bureau has incorrect information. They're not perfect. Okay. So, and that would give you time to get that corrected before you show up ready to buy a car that you absolutely love, and then they say, no, we can't loan you that money. Excuse me. But all those factors work together to make up your credit score. Interestingly enough, loan companies are not the only ones who look at your credit report. Sometimes your insurance company might also look at your credit score to determine whether or not to change your insurance rates. So that is also something to keep in mind. Apparently, insurance companies have determined that if you are bad at paying your bills, you might also want to burn your own house down. So that is a factor in that, and you definitely want to keep an eye on your credit score. If you are one of those that will choose not to borrow money until maybe a mortgage, excuse me, there are other ways to get a credit score or to work around if you don't have one. But if you were, say, 18 years old and just decided, you know what, I think I'm going to buy a house. I just think that would be a good thing to do. You aren't going to necessarily have a credit score, so you need to know how would you work around that. And there are ways to do that. Okay, the second C is capacity. Lenders need to know how you will repay. So they're going to ask for information on any source of income you have. That might be child support. It might be Social Security. Where do you work? How long have you worked there? I just got a brand new job, so I'm going to go out and spend a bunch of money and get a new car so I can get to work. Well, you haven't been at that job long enough for them to know you're going to stay. But they do want to know where you work, how much money you bring home, and how long you've worked there. Number 3, capital. What is your net worth? In other words, how much money would you have if you if you sold everything you had and paid off all your bills? Would you have anything left, or would you still owe money? They want to know that adding more debt on top of what you already have is not going to get you to the point that you cannot afford to feed yourself. Okay, so there are limits on how much they'd be willing to loan you, and they need to know what those limits are. Okay, that's number 3. So character, capacity, capital. The next one is collateral. Would this property that you're going to use as collateral for your loan be sufficient to repay? If you go out and buy a 2010 Honda Accord and you pay $7,000 or $8,000 for it, it might seem like it's worth that to you, but to the bank it might not be. And they may say, well, yeah, we'll lend you money for it, but we're only going to lend you $5,000 because we can only sell it for that much if you don't pay. So the collateral has to be worth it to stand for that loan. Okay. You cannot, if a home is valued, if the appraised value of a home comes in at $100,000, you are not going to be able to borrow all $100,000 of that. They're going to require a down payment to make it worth their effort to loan you the money on that house. Okay, number 5 is conditions. This would be the current general economic conditions. For example, right now, our economy is in pretty weird shape. We really don't know exactly where we are. Unemployment skyrocketed just last week. Everything's kind of weird right now. So if you walked into a bank today and said, I'd like to borrow, $100,000 and buy this house, they might say, let's wait a couple weeks and see what's happening. Because if the economy is indeed tanking and it's going to be there a while, they don't want to loan out too much money because they don't know for sure that you're going to be able to keep your job and that you're going to be able to repay. Some people in this situation right now are doing really well, but we don't know how long that's going to last. So the current economic conditions do play a part in how you can repay your loan, and they will come into play there. Great, so that is all. That's all I have for today. So we will be working on a workbook review page. I'll put that assignment on Google Classroom to go along with what's already on RenWeb, and I will add the Zoom meeting to our RenWeb notes and to our Google Classroom. And again, feel free to invite all of the senior class, even those who are not taking economics with us, and we'll just have a little bit of a meeting here, okay? I will see you all on Friday. Thanks.